This video is mainly to help those Selangor students who are having chemistry AMALI tomorrow. Okay, here are some basic skills and also some common questions that usually ask you in the paper 3 AMALI paper. Okay, there's procedure, tabulation of data, variable, hypothesis, operational definition, classification, prediction, observation, and also inference. Okay, so you have to be careful. One of the very important thing you have to do tomorrow is when you got your paper, remember to check, double check whether the question is about the chemical properties of oxide of your period 3 with sodium hydroxide and acid. Of course, they can change it to potassium hydroxide. They can change it to like other acid, but it has to be an acid, alkali, reacts with your period 3 oxide. Okay, so make sure it is the same experiment as what you are learning now. If it is different, then you don't put in the same answer anymore. It will be a different experiment. So let's see. How do I know whether this experiment will be a period 3 oxide experiment and it involves acid and alkali? Of course, we'll be looking at the list of material and apparatus given. So you will be able to see some oxide powder given and then also acid alkali solution. Acid alkali solution. Okay, so the reaction is something, the experiment is something like this. You will have to react each of the powder with acid and also alkali solution. For example, magnesium oxide, the magnesium oxide will react with acid. It will also react with alkali solution. You'll be given a test tube rack tomorrow. Okay, so I think the easiest way is to do the experiment like one powder by one powder. Let's say I do MgO first. This is what you do. This is the first step you have to do. So you first add the magnesium oxide powder into the test tube, and then the first test tube you go and add whatever you want. It can be acid first, or it can be the alkali first. So maybe let's say the first test tube I add acid, then the second test tube I add alkali solution. Then you have to stir and see whether it can dissolve or not. Okay, so here comes the procedure. This is the procedure that I copy from the textbook and I modify a little bit. So here in the textbook, it says fill 1/4 spatula of magnesium oxide, which is actually less than half spoon, okay? Less than half spatula of the powder. You put it into the test tube. Okay, two test tube. And then measure and pour 5 cm cube. And here, remember, guys, 5.0, remember to write 0.0, 5.0 cm cube of the sodium hydroxide added into the test tube. And then you do the same thing for nitric acid, put it into the second test tube. And then you'll be given if you are given a Bunsen burner, you can heat the mixture gently. That means you don't have to heat it until it boils, okay? Because the oxide powder, even without heating it, it will also have reaction. Okay, it will also have reaction. Heating it is just to speed up the reaction. So heat it gently, stir the mixture at the same time. So you will have a test tube holder. You just hold the test tube with the holder and then you stir it while heating it. Okay, then put it aside, another one like that. Observe the solubility and record the observation. Repeat the steps by using aluminum oxide, the other two oxide, to replace the first one. Just like that. So memorize the procedure. And then remember, guys, make sure the oxide powder is the same. If they change it to sodium, let's say they change it to sodium oxide, they are not using magnesium oxide, they use sodium oxide, then you just follow the material given, you write sodium oxide. So please don't memorize and then just write down bulat-bulat. Then here's the result. So do the experiment and then you automatically know the result. whether it can be dissolved or not. So let me tell you the theory here. Magnesium oxide, because it is basic means alkaline. So this is why it should react with acid. It should dissolve in acid. But it is not gonna dissolve in the alkali solution. No. Alkali and alkali, no reaction. But alkali and acid, yes, there will be a reaction. And then for aluminium oxide, because aluminium oxide is amphoteric, so it will dissolve in both solution. Amphoteric means it can be acidic, it can be alkaline, so it can dissolve in both. While silicon 4 oxide, it is acidic. So acidic only have reaction with the alkali solution, but not have reaction with the acid. Okay, so you go through the answer yourself here. And then variable. Okay, for this part, guys, remember to check the experiment you did with your school teacher. See what's the answer your teacher want. Whether your teacher want type of oxide or they want you to write a specific name for each of the oxide. Both of the answer also acceptable, but some of the teacher they prefer the name of the oxide. Okay, so ikut sekolah, ikut your teacher's pattern. See what they want. Responding variable also. See your teacher want chemical property of oxide in period 3, or your teacher wants solubility of period 3, oxide in sodium hydroxide and nitric acid. They're actually the same. Both are acceptable. Okay, fixed variable. This one, ikut soalan. Most likely, you will be getting same volume and same concentration of the solution. Then you will have to write volume and concentration of sodium hydroxide solution and nitric acid. If the list only show you the volume without showing you the concentration, then you just write volume. Okay, so it depends on the question. Hypothesis. So after you've done your experiment, then you should know which one is basic, which one is amphoteric, and which one is acidic. Yeah. Operational definition. Different school also got different pattern, but most of the school will be what you do and then what you observe. You have to write a sentence, okay, and tell me what to do and then what will be the expected observation. So for example, state the operational definition for amphoteric oxide. So you see, in this experiment, the one important procedure I did, and then immediately leads me to the result is when I add aluminum oxide into sodium hydroxide and nitric acid, this is what I did. After I did this step, the aluminum oxide dissolve in both solution, produce a color solution. So it's a combination of procedure and then your observation. So if the question want basic oxide, then you just change the name to magnesium oxide. But magnesium oxide dissolve in acid and does not dissolve in the alkali solution. Just like that. Okay, the other one you read yourself. And then finally, classification. They will be giving you a list of substance to classify into maybe basic oxide or amphoteric oxide. So just remember, basic oxide are actually metal oxide. Metal oxide like sodium oxide. And then acidic oxide, they are non-metal oxide. So we have seen non-metal like sulfur dioxide, chlorine, phosphorus, they are non-metal oxide, right? And they are acidic. Predict the solubility. So prediction. So they might want you to predict the solubility of sodium oxide. Since you know that it is a basic oxide, then basic oxide should dissolve in acid, have reaction with acid, but does not dissolve in the sodium hydroxide solution. Prediction. Then lastly, based on the answer in question 7, state an inference. So it's like you have to give me a conclusion based on the result. Sodium oxide dissolve in acid, but does not dissolve in the alkali solution. So what's the conclusion? So sodium oxide is a basic oxide. Just like that. So this similar question, okay? And then type number 2. Type number 2 is they give you unknown. You doesn't know what are the, like which one is magnesium oxide, which one is aluminum oxide, you don't know. So you have to carry out the experiment. Everything is the same actually. It's just that the result, just now that one, maybe you can just memorize the answer and then just write it down without doing the experiment. But this one, unknown, you have to carry out the experiment and then record one by one. See whether it dissolves or not. Okay? Then hypothesis, variables and variables are all the same. Just that the name here might be different. Hypothesis also, if it's oxide A, if oxide A is basic, then you write oxide A is basic. If oxide C is basic, then you change oxide C. So ikut keputusan operational definition also, use the unknown they gave you. And then classification is the same. Prediction here, they might want you to suggest. So let's say you finish your experiment already. You found out that oxide A is basic. Then they might want you to suggest a name. So it can be magnesium oxide, amphoteric, go for aluminum oxide, acidic, silicon 4 oxide. So they can change this part. Instead of asking you for the name of the oxide, they can also ask you to predict the property. Suggest the property like oxide A is basic, oxide B is amphoteric, C is acidic. They can also even ask you to tell them what's the metal A. If they ask metal, they just write magnesium. Don't write magnesium oxide. If they ask oxide, they write magnesium oxide. If they ask metal, they write magnesium. That's all. Okay? Bye-bye.